So in this section, first we will check out what is lambdas and also higher order function and how to implement them within your application. And in the end, we will see what are closures. Now this section contains 3 videos. And this section is one of the most important section of the Dart programming series. So make sure you watch all the 3 videos. Now in the first video, let us start exploring what do we mean by the lambda, where the lambda expression is a definition of a function without a name. That is, a nameless function is known as the lambda function. And the lambda function is also known as the anonymous function or just the lambda. Now in Dart, the function is also an object, similar to integer, which is an object, string message, which is here an object. Similarly, we can define function space, the variable name, and then the function definition. So this will now be a function object. So here we are again back to our editor. Here I have defined a normal function add my numbers that takes 2 parameters, find the sum and print the sum. Now the normal function, if you notice, contains a name. So here add my numbers is the name of our function. Now the lambda function is a nameless function, that is a function without a name. So how to define a lambda expression? Let's check it out. Well, the structure is similar to what we have here, just that the name will not be present. So let us represent this function as a lambda expression. The syntax will be very similar. Just copy this parameter including the bracket and paste it within the main function. And then copy the body as well, such as curly bracket open till close. And then paste it here. Perfect. Now end the expression with the help of a semicolon. Now the expression in front of you is actually the lambda expression. This function does not contain any name. Now as mentioned, a function in Dart is an object. So you can assign this function to a variable, such as var add two numbers equal to the value. If you want, you can give some indentation. So on the left we have the variable name and on the right we have the value. Now this add two numbers is of the type of function. So instead of var, you can use the function class here. So this means that in Dart we have a special class of function. Perfect. Now here if you notice, this function does not return anything. It simply print out the sum of these two numbers. Now what if I want to define a function that returns some value? For example, here I will define the parameter such as int number, and in the body I want to return 4 times this number. So I will here use the return keyword followed by number into 4 and then end the expression with the help of a semicolon, and on the left here you can assign it to some variable. Multiply by 4 equal to our function. Perfect. So this method here does not return anything, it simply print out the sum. But here we have a function that returns some value. Now how to call the lambda function? So for that the syntax is use the variable name such as add two numbers and then pass these two values as if it is a part of this variable, like we call any normal function such as 2, 5. Now run the application. So here we go, we got 7. Perfect. Now how to call this function? So for that here we can use multiply by 4, same syntax, and then pass in some value such as 5. Now since from this function we are returning a value, so here we have to manually print out the returned value such as print and then call this function. This will now print out 20. Perfect. Now let us proceed and show you the second way of defining a lambda expression, such as representing the lambda as a function expression. In short, we are going to use the shorthand syntax, or you can say the fat arrow. So for that again, let us copy this function, paste it here, modify the name so as to avoid any conflict of name. And now instead of using these two statements, let us use just one statement to find out the sum. So let us copy it and replace the sum here. And now we can remove this statement. And since we have just one statement within our function, So we can basically convert our function using the shorthand syntax. And we have already covered the topic of function expression in my previous videos. So here I will simply remove this part and then use the fat arrow. Perfect. So the whole bunch of code is now converted into just one line of statement. Similarly, we can convert this function into the function expression. So here again, let us modify our code. Remove the return keyword, use the fat arrow, and end the statement with the help of a semicolon. Perfect. And now modify the name such as multiply 4 just to avoid any conflict. And to call these functions, we again use the same syntax. The variable name such as add numbers, and then pass in the value such as 3, 7. And also you can call multiply 4. So here, since the method is returning a value, so here I will print it out manually and pass in suppose 10. Run the application and then you will get your expected output such as 10 and 40. Perfect. So this was all about defining the lambda expression. I showed you two ways of representing the lambda expression in Dart. So the lambda expression are also known as the anonymous function or just a lambda. So here is the syntax to define the lambda. These are the parameters and this is the method body. And you can assign this value to some variable. And then you can also use the shorthand syntax in case your function just have one line of code. And to call a lambda function, the syntax is very similar. Perfect. So that's all for this video.